So what if a city's economy wasn't just about growth, but about justice? That's the huge idea behind this really interesting blueprint for Philadelphia called Project Beloved Community. It's a plan to fight poverty by asking a pretty radical question. What if the community itself actually controlled its own wealth? Let's dive in.
Right off the bat, you need to know where this all comes from. The project's entire foundation is built on this powerful vision from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. You see, the beloved community he talked about wasn't just a nice phrase. It's the guiding principle here. It's about building an economy that's actually based on justice and, taking care of each other.
And that leads to the project's big, central question. I mean, what if the people who live in a city, the people who make it what it is, were the ones in the driver's seat of its economic future? What would it look like if wealth was built and shared right there in the neighborhoods, instead of getting sucked away to Wall Street?
And that brings us right here to the project's mission. It's a plan to build an economy where communities, especially the ones that have been shut out for generations, have real democratic control over the banks, the land, and the businesses that shape their everyday lives. And let's be clear, this isn't about tiny little tweaks. We're talking about a fundamental shift in who holds the economic power.
Okay, so what exactly is this project trying to fix? Well, the plan digs into some really deep-seated crises in Philadelphia's economy that, it turns out, are all connected.
First up is a massive housing affordability crisis. For years, rents in Philly have just shot through the roof, way faster than people's paychecks. And the result? Well, it's staggering. Almost half of all renters are what's called cost-burdened. That means a huge slice of their income is just gone, right away, to housing, leaving barely anything for everything else.
The project argues this isn't just a string of bad luck, it's a symptom of what they call a democratic deficit. This chart lays it out perfectly. Right now, you've got this extraction model, where wealth is literally pulled out of Philly neighborhoods and funneled to Wall Street. The goal is to flip that script to a circulation model, where money and power stay local and actually benefit the community.
This next slide shows another form of economic extraction the project points to: mass incarceration. I mean, just look at this. While Black Philadelphians make up 44% of the city's population, they are a shocking 73% of the prison population. The project frames this not just as a social crisis, but as an economic one. It destabilizes families and pulls wage earners right out of their communities.
And here's the price tag. The city spends over $309 million every single year on incarceration. The argument here is that this huge pot of money isn't creating real safety. Instead, it could be used to build up community wealth and actually get at the root causes of crime.
Okay, so you see these deep, tangled problems. How on earth do you begin to fix them? Well, the project rolls out a 9-point plan. But here's the crucial part. It's not just a random wish list. It's a system of interconnected tools, all designed to work together and strengthen each other.
And here they are, the whole toolkit at a glance. You see things like a public bank, community land trusts, and worker co-ops. Now, we're not going to go through all 9, but let's pull out a couple of the really key ones to see how they're supposed to fit together.
At the absolute heart of the plan is a Philadelphia public bank. See, right now, the city puts hundreds of millions of its dollars into big commercial banks on Wall Street. A public bank would hold those city funds right here and then use them to give low-cost loans for things like affordable housing or cooperative businesses. All that capital and interest, it stays and circulates right here in Philly.
Another key tool is something called a community land trust, or a CLT. You can think of it as a direct weapon against gentrification. A nonprofit CLT buys up land and takes it off the speculative market forever. This creates housing and community spaces that are permanently affordable and governed by the residents themselves. It's a total game changer.
And this is where the magic happens. This slide shows you how it all clicks together. So, picture this. The new public bank gives a low-interest loan to a group of workers who want to start their own cooperative business. Then, they build that business on land that's owned by a community land trust, which means their rent is stable and affordable. See? Each piece strengthens the others.
Of course, with any plan this ambitious, there's always the billion-dollar question, right? Where does all the money come from? Well, the project lays out a strategy with a bunch of different angles to fund this whole transformation.
So to get that public bank off the ground, the plan is to create a multi-billion-dollar investment pool. Now, this isn't new money out of thin air. It's about redirecting capital that's already there, pulling from the city's own pension fund, using city reserves, and getting investments from huge local nonprofits like universities and hospitals.
Beyond just starting the bank, though, the project needs ongoing fuel for the fire. The goal is to raise a massive amount of new revenue every single year, somewhere between $500 and $700 million. And this would come from a series of new progressive taxes.
Now, what's so smart about this slide is how it breaks things down. It clearly shows what the city can do all on its own, like getting payments from large nonprofits or taxing vacant land, versus what would require a bigger fight at the state level, like a graduated income tax. It shows they've really thought about the real-world political hurdles.
Okay, so let's say this plan gets put into action. What does success even look like? Well, the project sets some very specific, measurable targets for its first 10 years.
First, on housing. The goal is to create 65,000 deeply affordable housing units. And we're not talking about temporary fixes. These would be permanently affordable thanks to structures like the community land trusts and social housing.
When it comes to jobs and poverty, the target is just as ambitious. The plan aims to get 100,000 more Black Philadelphians into living wage jobs. And the ultimate goal there? To cut the Black poverty rate in the city in half. This really puts that idea of reparative justice front and center.
And finally, it's not just about income, it's about wealth. The project sets a goal of creating $1 billion in new Black household wealth. This would happen through things like owning a piece of a cooperative or home ownership on those community land trusts, directly tackling that historical racial wealth gap. So what's the big takeaway here? When you boil it all down, it's a shift to what the project calls democratic community stewardship. It's a vision for an economy where wealth isn't just extracted and sent away, but it's created, grown, and controlled right there in the community, for the benefit of the very people who call that place home.
And that leaves us with a final thought. You know, while this was all designed specifically for Philadelphia, the project raises a much bigger question. In a time of growing inequality everywhere, could this kind of democratic, community-controlled economy be a blueprint for other cities that are trying to build a more just and equitable future? It's definitely a question worth thinking about.